Test, test. Okay, hi everyone. Okay, thanks for taking your time out today to attend this the first meetup, Kuala Lumpur JavaScript first meetup of the year 2019. So if you guys are not new here, then you know usually it's Jonathan who like organizes this event. But starting from this year onwards, like Tevan Raj and I will be like hosting the Kuala Lumpur JavaScript events from now on. So, well, nice to meet all of you for the first time. And if you don't know me, my name is Wei Jian. I'm currently a full stack developer at Blockchain Labs Malaysia. And yeah, so just to get a gauge of like who the crowd here today, right? Is anyone here for the first time? Like you've never attended any KLJS events? Like yeah, just raise up your hands. Okay, that's quite a few. Okay, for those who are new, welcome to this community. It's nice to have you here, and hopefully you get something, a thing or two today. Learn something new and apply it in your daily job, or meet someone new who can maybe help with your career, or just make a new friend, or just enjoy some geek talk, or just enjoy a pizza. Anyway, no matter what it is, I hope you manage to like get something out of this event today. And yeah, so it's 7:58. Yeah, we still have some time. Oh, okay. So I was gonna introduce this later, but today's pizza is like sponsored by also one of our KLJS committee member, Ashrik. He's the CTO of Vase AI. Yeah. So we'll talk more about that later. Like there's a time slot for that. Anyways, yeah. But yeah, I'm curious. Like, are all of you like working already? Is like who's not working yet? Yeah. Okay. Okay. At least we can see most people are like working developers. I don't mean it that way. Yeah. Okay. You still have 1 minute, but who works on the back end? Back end developers. So the rest are all front end. Front and back. Wait, who's front end only? Mixed. Yeah, full stack developers. Yeah, so it's pretty even. You can see. Yeah. You need to get out of here. Like, I'm just kidding. Okay, yeah, so it's time. Let's introduce our first speaker, Ian. So Ian's talk is Unleash the Beast, Optimization and Efficiency for Web Application. Yeah.
Hello, mic test. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Once again, good evening, everyone. Okay, so looks like everyone has taken their piece of pizza. Okay, so yeah, so to introduce myself, so you might be a new face in the community. So I'm Ian Labao. So I originally came from the Philippines. So land of the slowest internet in Asia. So that's why I chose this topic because I've been mastering this optimization thing because you know, when you say optimization, it needs to load fast. Then when you had external factors affecting it, like the connection, internet connection, so you need this would somehow be really beneficial on your side. That's why I want to share my experience, how I do things, how I optimize things. Then also if I miss out something and you can share other techniques better, so we'll make this a two-way discussion, so it's not just me sharing the knowledge, so everyone would be more involved, and I'm encouraging it throughout our session. So don't hesitate to raise your hand or put in some ideas if you have something on your mind. Okay, is that good? Okay, so currently, that's why I landed here in Malaysia. Is I have your job, so I've been training a group of young and enthusiastic developers for a ISP provider here. So if you heard it about BuQuest, so we've been the one in charge doing those portals for their online assets. So and currently, this is one of the struggles the team is facing. So that's why I also bringing up this topic. So I can also share with you some of things that I've already shared with the team. So first things first. So as you see on the background, so what do you see on the background? It's a iceberg, right? So have anyone here seen an actual iceberg? Have you seen the Titanic movie? So I bet you somehow see there the iceberg. So why did the Titanic hit the iceberg? Because the captain thought that it's just that small, but deep under it's really big. So basically, that's what's happening when we are developing applications. So front-end wise, the one that's appearing above the water is a really, really nice, good, aesthetically appealing app. But then when we try to look inside, so there are chunks of codes that I think some are necessary, then some are really quite redundant. So that's why I choose that background. So it has relation to the topic. So moving forward, so I plotted 3 agenda that I think we should somehow accomplish with this short talk. So first is to refresh, get to know the basics of the best practice of optimization for your web application. Next is to provide tools and techniques on how we can measure if your web application is optimized, and then to make this optimization thing as a practice and standard upon developing your web application. So because I think this part would come on a later part of your development, that when you already done the application, then that's the time you try to test the speed, test the loading, then you would see, hey, this is not loading as fast as it could. So that's why let's try to put this into practice. So somehow we can start doing so this optimization thing as like our religious, we are practicing it on a routine basis. So for the introduction, not sure if code is too slow or user is too fast. So because this is the first dilemma. So front-end developers really end users are our mortal enemies. So even though how we created the user experience really nice, there would be something or someone who would ruin it and said, okay, I go to your application, I go to this page, and then suddenly it's not working. So we'd also consider those external factors. So some past facts. So regarding optimization, so do you know that the there is a this is the fastest website in the whole universe or whole internet? So try visiting the link, so you would see why it is so very fast. So okay, so that title might be not appropriate, but then try to visit it. It would show you why it's really the fastest website in the internet. If you have found a one that is faster than that, I'm willing to give a reward. Okay. So try to visit that one, so you would see. Then so first up, so why do we really need to consider this optimization thing? So because that would somehow came into your mind that, okay, my job as a front-end developer is to just develop the UI, make the user experience good. So why do I need to consider this optimization thing? So first point, just like in race, slow ones are left behind. So did you see a race that the last one who finished is the one who had the trophy? So none. So the fast the application loads, the user likes it. And it's not that also when you are considering the loading it fast, so make sure that it's also giving the right output. Sometimes it's loading fast, but then the output is not correct. So but then just try to consider that one. The next is just like our own personality, we want to be beautiful inside and out. So yeah, just like I mentioned earlier with the iceberg, so what the user sees, a very, very nice, aesthetically appealing site. But then when we tried to check on the codes that you put in order to build the application, you would see a lot of tons and chunks of unnecessary code. So that would also contribute to the loading of your website, which is not really a good practice. Okay, so then lastly is, just like I mentioned also earlier, just like a good internet connection, to not make you annoyed. So if an app application is loading slow, would you use it or not? Definitely not. So because if most commonly the user experience is once you click something, there should be a response that I should get. So if I don't get a response, there is a big chance that I would left out that application and find another one. So if your goal is to make your application function effectively, so you should have encourage users to use it, so at least you can benchmark the effectivity of your application. Because most developers, they're just deploying applications. They don't care if users are using it the proper way or not. So in the end, they can't benchmark the effectivity of their web application. Then from that benchmark, you can see that, okay, I'm getting from my first launch, I'm getting 10 users a day. Then suddenly after a week, you put an update, then the visitors or the users of your site went from 10 to just 3. So there is something wrong with the update that you made. So from that, you could see the efficiency and optimization are working hand in hand. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, so if you have questions, just or any ideas, just raise your hand. Okay, so the basics. So who here have is guilty of overlooking the basics of coding? Like okay, this is a very good example. When I was coding a JavaScript, it's just I'm writing the piece of code to create a simple animation on my application. Then I forgot to before that when I tried to render the application, it's not working as what I have intended. So why it's happening like that? So I tried to look deep into the codes, but then I haven't seen, oh, my code is running good. I have checked all of it. Then suddenly, when I have spent almost, I think, 3 or 4 hours, then I just realized I miss a certain semicolon. So that's why sometimes we need to really stick with the basics, because sometimes those things have been overlooked. So I have here 3 things that I think we should consider when we are trying to optimize things. So first one is the merge. So I think this is not the first time you hear merge, right? So merge is applicable to a wide variety of technologies in the IT field. So merge could be used also on code repositories on Git. So same goes with the JavaScript. So group together scripts that belongs to the same feather. So this is the common common mistakes junior developers are guilty of, right? So that example, you're trying to put in chunks and chunks on or many JavaScript in a certain application, and then all of a sudden you lose track on which of those should be really rendering on that part of the application or not. So that's why I suggest for that part, you merge those example. If those belongs to the main page or the home page of the application, you create a main-script.js, then put it in there, all the scripts that are needed only for that certain page, and then move on with the other scripts. So by that, also it would help you have an easier debugging. So because you won't need to check each of those scripts, at least from that part, you know that that application is just loading this certain script, so directly you can debug the script. You would not go like a trial and error with each scripts that you are loading. Then this would also really have a big impact in terms of loading, because you know, when you load the single, when you see on the on that analysis tool of Google, so this is the common suggestion that they suggest on the optimization. It's either you minify or you merge those scripts that you are loading, especially if you are loading more than 10 scripts per page. I think that's really not applicable, because as I mentioned to the developers, I'm handling at least a maximum of 5 scripts per page. So at least it would not be really heavy for the server to load it. Okay? So any questions about it? None? Okay, so next. So compress. So sometimes having no space is good to fill out the gaps. Okay, so is anyone here using minified version of their scripts in developing? So in developing, I'm developing minified scripts. So why? Because you know, I mentioned there, use minified version on production. So why is it advisable in that setup? So because example, if you minify a script, basically that script would be shortened out to just one line. And do you think debugging one line of code is really good? So no. So at least when you're developing, try to use the non-minified version. Then when you're trying to deploy on the production, that's the time you use the minified version. But I think those web packs that we are using now are having this setup that when you run the command to deploy the files to production, then it would you can put in a setup that it would compress or automatically minify the unminified scripts that you are using, right? So next is image sprite usage. So anyone here is sprites usage? Anyone here using image sprites when developing application? Or do you hear the word image sprite before? Okay, so image, for those who have not yet heard image sprite, it's like when you're using those example preloaders, arrows. So instead of calling it one by one, you can just have it placed on a single image. Then you can set the position where to render. Example, you set the position to render at 3 pixels and 4 pixels. It's just an example. Then when the application would render, it would go to the part that, example, it's their loader. So at least you're calling just a whole one image rather than if you're using different images. It would give you also, just like on JavaScript, I mentioned earlier, instead of loading it one by one, you load it as is, and then the browser can render, or the server can render your application much fast. Then lastly is avoid large file size. So basic rule of the thumb in minification, if you can minify it, compress it as much as possible, especially the images. So but then there's this boundary between the designer and the developer on this case. Like, is anyone here a designer? Designer? Or all developers are here? So do you get this? Because in my previous work, I got this feeling that when I am compressing the images, the designer are getting annoyed because they said, hey, you see this one, I give it to you in a high resolution. Then when you render it on your application, it's pixelated, it doesn't look good. So between those things, I suggest that you set the boundaries between you and the designer. So at least, because sometimes, we want really to produce a good quality software or application. But then sometimes, really, you need to put things on a case-to-case basis. Like example, if the application you are developing is a photo app gallery. So do you want all the images to be distorted on a photo app gallery? So the main functionality of it is to display the quality and good image. So at least on that, you can still do the compression, but not to the extent of that you really compress it until to the last pixel. So with that, I think we are also good with that. Okay, so any other questions you want to ask? Done? Okay. So last is offload. Remove those excess baggage from the server. So consider using CDN server. The reliable third-party service provider is your friend. So let's took up first the first point. So anyone here familiar with CDN? What does CDN means? What? Content Delivery Network. Yeah, good. You know those things because that's the most common practice of developers. We all know this initials, but when asked what that's initial is, we don't know. So what does CDN do? So CDN is it's distributing your content into different servers. And then when there is a request for that certain content or certain material, whichever is the fastest of all those servers would respond first. So with that, you have your application loaded faster. And also, it would lighten up the load on your server, especially if your server has limited capacity, because you don't really need to host all your files or files that your application needs. Some of those could be used on CDN, especially those assets like the images and the scripts. So then next is a reliable third-party service provider is your friend. So anyone here is utilizing Google Forms? Google Forms, anyone? So because really when I'm creating applications or software and there is like a example survey form. So when I am really too lazy to create my own survey form, and then they just really want to get the response or create a simple poll. So I suggest the client that we use the Google Forms. So because it's all around, all that they need, because it's just a basic poll that they want to get the response. So if you code it yourself, it would kind of give you a hard time. But then at least with this one, they already provided it, and they would not provide that service, or they would not be known for that service that they are providing if they are not really a good one. So also another good example is the newsletter. So there are many newsletter providers like the one I'm using, MailChimp. So anyone here using MailChimp? So I'm using it for my newsletters integration on my application. So because you just need to get the key and integrate it to your site, and then you can get them subscribe for your newsletter. Okay, so that's really it for the offload. Any questions so far? So far so good. Okay, so next is correct practice makes perfect. So just want to emphasize with the picture, like so because basically all of us know practice makes perfect. But if you're practicing, the which is not really the right way or the correct way, you would end up doing the same graph. So just like in the picture you see, he knows that, okay, when I am opening a can, I would use a can opener so I can open it easy. But then he didn't notice there is a easy open can. So with that one, so we can apply those things. So for this one, I put in 2 points. So first is let's not forget about the standards. So to make this the discussions, I'm kind of short and summarize. So I just put it down to 2 rule of the thumbs. So first is write a good code, avoid unnecessary loops or condition, and run essential codes to page. So first point, run and avoid unnecessary loops or condition. So there is this experience of mine that one of my colleagues he had this piece of array, then he just want to check if this array contains this certain value. Then what did the developer do? So instead of using the .index of JavaScript that would determine if this array is existing on that, or this value is existing on that array, he looped it, then put in a condition that if value is equals to 1, 2, 3, then you would do the certain logic. So that's all about it. So avoid those unnecessary things. If there are built-in functions or classes, whatever those frameworks you are using is giving you, try to utilize it. So another thing is on CSS. So when you're using Bootstrap, are you aware Bootstrap has utility classes? So anyone here using the utility classes? So because I'm guilty of this practice that, example, I want to remove a margin. So I'm creating my own class and put it there like no dash margin. But then when I check Bootstrap 4, they provide the m-0, then it would automatically remove the margin. So don't do some redundancy like that. So that goes up to the next point, that run essential codes to page. Just like what I mentioned, if you can segregate the scripts page by page, not really load all the scripts in one time, then out of 5 scripts, only 2 scripts should be running on that certain page or that certain part of your application. It would be really a good impact on your optimization, because instead of loading 5, you will just load 2. So even those 0.seconds matter on optimization. Then last is just like I would have mentioned earlier, assets optimization. So caching with CDN. So if we gonna partner CDN with caching, it's a very powerful tool for your optimization. So because this one, instead of having your since CDN servers, they are really fast, that's proven. So but then if you add in caching to your application, instead of requesting directly to CDN server, they would first check the local cache. If it's good, then it renders it. If not, it would go to the CDN. So at least somehow, as I mentioned, if it's provided within the browser or within you, use that resource. Okay, the next is proper rendering. So defer or async. This is the common because this is a common discussion between JavaScript developers. So what is the difference between defer and async? Anyone? Where is the JavaScript developer guy earlier? Defer and async. Anyone who even just a wild idea? Defer and async. Go, sir. Mm-hmm. Okay, any other idea want to share? Okay, so actually, both of their ideas were right. So asynchronous, that's what the guy mentioned. It's loading asynchronously, but the difference is it's loading before the DOM. Unlike the ordinary call, when you call the JavaScript, it loads when the DOM is already reached. But this one, it's loading before that, so it's way faster. Then defer is you wait for the whole page to load, then it would apply the JavaScript or whatever script you are putting in there. So what's the difference between this one? So the difference is at async, there is no tendency that that example, if your layout is dependent on the script, at async, it would still look good on load time, but then on defer, it might somehow affect the way it looks, especially if the UI is dependent on the JavaScript. Because this is the experience I had before that one of my colleagues have been having those issues. Then we said there's a defer on the script, so that's why we remove it. It looks good. The next is try to innovate. Okay. Basically, what I'm using is I prefer defer because optimization wise, it's more good. So when in case of async and what do you call this, the other one you mentioned, prefetch. Regarding the prefetch, so I have heard those things, but I haven't actually had a first-hand experience with that one. But I think somehow those two will, I think, have some similarities. Or no, let me get back to you on that later. Okay, so let's move on with this one. So finish this one again. Okay, so last thing is to innovate. So typically, some you guys would say JavaScript is dead already because there are many other frameworks being on the list like TypeScript, Angular, React, so on and so forth. But as I said, if JavaScript makes your application slow or Angular makes your application slow, try to experiment with other frameworks. There are many frameworks being available online. So it's up to you how to try to experiment with those solutions. So lastly is the action. So technically, there are two factors that would affect your optimization, the internal and the external factors. So the internal factors is, these are the some of the guide questions you want to run through when you're having optimizations problem, like how many requests that it takes to load the application, how do we really need to load all that requests at the same time, which asset took up much time to load, is it justifiable, is there a way we can optimize the said assets? Then should we consider updating or replacing the said assets? So with this, some kind of questions and guidelines, you would be able to pinpoint what really makes your application slow in terms of internal factors, and then do necessary fixes or update with your site. Then next is the external factors. So is the web application hosted on a stable server? The next is, are all external libraries, framework loads and function well, and do end user experience really matters? Because first, if the application is slow, maybe there is some intermittent loading issue with the server. So try to consult your server or hosting provider first. If they said, oh no, our servers are all good, then it's the application itself that has the wrong or needs to be updated. Then do end user experience really matters? Because sometimes, as I said, external factors like internet connection, for an example, they are using old phones or old browsers. So that's why it's up to you to support those keys or not. So that's when you came into judging. Okay, so for tools, so lastly for these tools, so there is a built-in developer tools in the browser. Like when you inspect element, check in the network tab. It provides a waterfall thing on how your assets are loading. You would see there how much loading time it takes. Then if you're not satisfied with that, try to look with Google Page Insights. They provide a much more detailed in layman's term of what's happening behind the loading of your site. Then also alternatives are Pingdom Tools and GT Metrics. So just to sum it up, so prematurely optimizing application for the sake to gain a little bit of performance is not what we should aim here. You should always use the appropriate tools, benchmark, and analyze your code for actual performance problems and optimize that way. So we should not really do some patches or quick fixes. We should arrive to what really makes our website slow and fix it on the first place. So it's like providing more of a solution rather than quickly putting a patch or a band-aid. That's what we call it, band-aid fix. So I think, yeah, that summarized the talk. So I hope you somehow been refreshed, especially those who are more of an experienced developer and those who are beginning. You could pick up something from this and start considering optimization as part of your applications development. So I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Okay.
So, as I said, all of these optimizations are great to have on a website, on a front end, but not necessarily on a web app. So when you said when you need to load the JavaScript, you need to load it at the end. In the terminology of using web apps, usually you need to load the script first. That's why you need to use a preload or a prefetch, depending on the script that you have. As for the external libraries, I think if you are using a code splitting builder like Webpack, for example, you're really all set if you have all of them inside of your package. So it really depends. This is really great for websites, but I don't think it is for Webpack, for web apps.
Okay, so great point. So that's what, as much as possible, I've been preparing a presentation for a really great, not mean really great, but a wide variety of they call this audiences. So as you can see, some of you would see it more leaning on the website, some are not. So that's why it's kind of like on the limbo in between. So it's also an example. If I focus solely on web apps or solely on websites, some other here would not kind of feel not really, or why would I check out on this one? So at least it would have really, I'm not really targeting to cover all, but at least somehow put in a general outview on how things should be, a developer should be thinking on how he can do things with these applications. Okay? Anything else?
Okay, thank you, Ian, for. Okay, thank you, Ian, for the talk. Next, let's invite Malcolm up to the stage to give a talk on React Advanced Patterns.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Malcolm. So I'm nobody. I'm just a front-end developer, and mainly on React. I'm also the organizer for. Sorry, I've come here to invite member. I'm also organizer for React KL. So I organize a workshop for beginners. So if you are never code React, you want to learn about React, yeah, you can go meet up and search and join me. My meetup are all free, so I do it because I think it's fun for me. Maybe not so fun for you. Yeah. Where's the URL already? Up here. Sorry, I have some technical setup first. So today what I'm going to do is I will do some live coding in React. So I'll show you a pattern called compound component. So just now I see a show of hand. There's a lot backend developer here. I will say sorry in advance because this is really very, very front end. So you may be bored. Yeah. Actually, I'm interested to know how many here write React code before. Can you just show a hand? Okay, cool. Not so little. Okay. Then at least you guys can, most people can understand me. For those who don't understand me, you can play your game. I won't be offended. We are. No, I don't remember. Oh, use yours. Okay. 8012345678. Okay. Okay. Okay, turn off cam, turn on mic, I will share screen. Okay, so you can see my screen. So today I will show you React, a very simple React app, and then I'll show you like how can we use this thing called compound component. So now we have a React app, and it's very simple. It's just two fields. So I can type my name here, and I can type my email here, right? So it's very simple. And it's very importantly is accessible. So means I click here, then it will auto focus on your input. So sorry. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So so it's accessible because I use React. No, just kidding. It's because we have a HTML. We have a for, okay? So HTML4 attribute, and it auto link your input, okay? So HTML 101. So to show you my code, this is my code. So I have an app component. Then I have two states, okay? I have one state called name, another state called email. And then at the bottom, I will just display my name and email. And then here I have two field components, one with a label name, one with a label email. Okay, very simple. One app, then two field components. Then so whenever the field change, then it will set the name, and the name will just get updated, and it will just update the name here. Okay. Now, how am I able to do this? Like link these two together. So we will just go into the field component. So this field component is also very simple. It will take all the properties, and then it will just apply to your label and input. So if you give an ID, then it will put this ID into the HTML4 and the ID of the input, so it will link them together. If you don't put ID, then this component itself, it will generate a default ID. So it will set the ID as a default ID. So even though like some people just don't care about accessibility, maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, it's fine. If you use this component, it will make your input is easy for blind people actually. Yeah, for blind people when you use a website. So this we are using Bootstrap. We are using Bootstrap. So you can see if you're familiar with Bootstrap, you can see our class, form control, form group, this kind of stuff, right? So now it works fine, it's easy. But then one day, our designer, they just learn about Bootstrap and they go to the Bootstrap website, right? And then they look at the form, they say, hey, Malcolm, I can see there's a cute things here. Can I have it for my email field as well? So can I have this thing here? Add symbol here. So as a developer, you know, we just have to listen to what designers say. So they want email have a, sorry? Not always. Yeah, sometimes, just kidding. So we want to make our field able to like have the extra icon. So what we're going to do is we put something called add-on. So we have this symbol, and then we go to the field, and then here we add another new props called add-on. So we go back to the Bootstrap website. So this is live learning Bootstrap. So we go to a Bootstrap website, see how they're able to do the extra label. They have an input group here, and then let me zoom in a bit so you can see. So they have input group here, and then inside they have an input group add-on span. That's how they do it, right? It's not simply an input there. So I have a problem here. Now I just have input. I don't have input group. So what can I do? So I have to do a condition here. If there's add-on, then I will need to add the input group. Else I will just show the previous one. So I'll have a input group. Then I need to have a input group add-on. And then I'll put my add-on here. And then I will just copy paste. Ta-da! Yeah, so now we're able to make the designer happy, but tomorrow the designer come again, right? The designer say, hey Malcolm, can you do something like when I click this button, I want to have a fancy pop on, have a fancy confirm. Can you do that? Of course, we can always do that, right? So we will just like add-on click, and then we'll do something. And then we will just pass the props here, okay? But I'm not going to do it because that's very stupid, right? Because tomorrow the designer, they will go to here, then they see, hey Malcolm, I see that you can add a button. Can you add a button there? Then can you do something when the button is clicked? It's not going to end anytime soon. So that's why we need to restructure our code a bit. So how I'm going to do this? The problem of we having so many props now is because our field component has too many responsibility. It's responsible to coordinate your ID. It's responsible to show your input. It's responsible to show your input and label everything. So we need to split out all the responsibility. How do I do? So I will just create a new component called label. Okay, it will just take a props, and then it will just return a label, and then it will just throw all the props to a label. And then I will also create an input component. So input component will just return the input, and then we'll take class name and anything else. And then we'll join the class name with form control. Okay, if you are not familiar with what I'm doing about this class name here, is because this is a common pattern people do when they want to add some class to the component, but they also allow people to like add on class. So that's what I'm going to do here. Like if people give class, I will join them together. If not, I will just have a form control. Okay, and then I will spread the input props. Means people give any props, I will just throw it into an input. So I split these two already, then everything here I'm going to delete. Okay, everything. And I will just tag a props called children. And I will just render children. So if you're not familiar with React children, but you're familiar with Angular, React children actually is the ng content. If you're familiar with Vue, React children actually is your slot. Okay, just give you some context. Yeah, slot. So now we split into 3 components. So now we have a label, we have an input, and then here we are going to split now. So instead of having everything there, I have a label name. Then I have a, no, I'm going to use my component. Input. And then I'm going to just move this guy here. Okay, same goes with my email. Yeah, you're seeing a man typing and not very fast and think he's very cool doing live coding. Yeah, but I enjoy this, Yeah, so now you see everything here, type and ID actually is just HTML, right? So I'll just move it to the input, and then label will just remove. Okay, now we split. We go back to our, okay, now everything still work, but I doesn't have the fancy button there, right? So I'm going to edit now. Input group. I know. Why it doesn't work? Input group. Yeah. And then I have a span input group add-on, and then alias. Hey, why it doesn't work? No, it should works. Yeah, it works. Okay. So now we still have what we have before, right? But now if designer come, they want to add whatever behavior, we can just add it here, right? On click, anything they want. But we lose something in this refactoring. We lose the coordination between the ID, right? Now, if I click here, you see it doesn't focus on input automatically, right? Previously it is there, now it's not there. So now we need to do something to make it work again. In other words, we want to make our field component able to communicate with our label and input to say, hey, this is your ID, you set to this value. So how do we do that? We need to use React context. So the process is, to do context, the step is figure out what you need to share. So this field and label, what we need to share? We need to share the input ID, right? So now we create context and we give a default value. Let's give it undefined. And what we're going to do in field here is we will render a field context provider. Okay, and then we'll give a value. So the value should be similar to your default value. So you have the same shape. So default value, I will give it default field value. And then in label here, we can use React use context. And we'll use a field context. So what this is going to do is, if you put your label within a field component, it will just communicate the input ID to the label. So we can get input ID here. So what we can do is we'll put input ID here. And last, in our input, is the same thing. I'm going to copy and then input ID. So, oh no, I did something wrong here. Current. Yeah, the current you no need to worry much. It's just React API. So now it works again. if you look at, you click name, you focus on your input, right? Because we are setting the value again. But you look at email doesn't work. Why? Because because our email, we set our ID manually, right? But over there is using the default ID. So somehow we need to sync back these two values. So how do we do that? Same, we go back to context. Since we have value, then we need a setter. So I will set input ID. So by default is a noob function, which means do nothing. And then here, instead of use ref, I'm going to use a state. So what this is going to do for me is, by default, it will set a state, okay? It's called input ID. And the value is going to be our default ID. And then we have a set. So now we will pass down input ID, set input ID. And then in our input component here, we need to sync back our input to the context. How we're going to do is, we have something called React use effect. Yeah, all the new stuff. So what we're going to do is, if my input props, if I have input props ID and the value of it is not equal to my context input ID, I'm going to set input ID. Okay. Now, you click on the name. Yes, it still works. You click on the email. Yes, it still works. Right? So now we able to keep our functionality, which is sync the ID. But at the same time, we make our component now much more easier to reuse, because everyone can just add anything on it. Why? Because our component now is very small. Like, its responsibility is very, very small. Yeah, so this is what we call compound component. So it's a set of components that they have to use together. You cannot have one only. Cannot have one, only one doesn't make sense. So you have a field, you have a label, your input. These three together, they works together. I think Angular can do the same thing too. I read online, but my Angular is too noob to show you how to do that. Yeah. So compound component is, I think, the way that you should, if you write React, you look at your components, is one way for you to make your component is much more smaller and much more flexible. And actually, how many time I still have? 8 minutes. Huh? Until 9 o'clock, right? Yes. So I have 12 minutes. Huh? Okay. So I have 8 minutes. Okay, so what else is compound component? I think if you don't understand, like you think this thing is like very far away. HTML actually has compound component as well. What is the compound component in your HTML? It's our select and option, right? Can you only have select? It doesn't make sense, right? You have select, you have option. So select is helping you to coordinate between the value, and the option is helping you to do the display and what is the actual value. And in React, what else is like that? Like our router, right? React router, actually we have a router, then we have route, then we have links. All this works together. And yeah, 8 minutes I think is enough. What I'm going to show you is, because now React is so fun, I can actually write a React router less than 100 lines. So we can create a route and we have a link. So no, cannot. No, I already write it. Now I'm just going to show you. Yeah, you go back can see my can see my, can see my GitHub. So now I renamed the previous component to page 1. So now my app is a router. I'll render a router and I have a route, and path is, let's say route is root, then our page 1. Then we can have page 2, then we can have page 3. Do I still have 5 minutes? Page 2. Yes, okay. So I'm gonna get it fast. H1, page 2, and then link to home, and then we have page 3. So link to page 2, and then in our page 1 we need a link to page 2. Okay. Yes. 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 Hey, why go to page 3? Suddenly demo fail. Okay. Yes. This is our root, right? We have page 2. So we go to page 2, and then we can go back to home. And then actually you see the back button actually works one, right? Yeah. And then all this thing actually is in my simple router file, which in total is less than 100, including space. Yeah. So this is the power of compile component. You can actually like have very, very powerful features. And actually, if you read the source code of React Router, it's nothing much more than this, because what they are doing is like history object in browser support is not that great, so they will handle it properly. But here I do a stupid window history push state. But yeah, but the concept is the same. So you have home, then page 2. Yeah. Then we can go page 3. Oh, I know why I was confused. Because this is called page 3. Yeah. Yeah, so, okay, I think that's all. Yes. Oh. Wait.
Test.
Oh. Can you see my screen? Yeah, I rejoining now.
Okay.
Share screen. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Question. Yeah.
Okay. So if you go back to the code, to the VS Code.
Yep.
Okay. So in here you're using a compound component,
Yes.
the field component. You're using a context to link between the app and your field component.
Yep.
Can you go to your simple router, the JSX?
Okay.
Can you scroll down?
Yep.
All the way down.
All the way down.
You're using a react.children.map. So it should be at the
here.
bottom. Yeah.
Here.
Sorry, .for each. So can't we also use the react.children for each or map inside of the field component without using a context? And you will still get the same effect where you click on a label, HTML for the input.
Oh, okay.
Inside.
Yes, you can do that, but there's some limitation. So the good thing about React context is regardless of where you put your component, like there's a nesting or what, it will always pass down. But if you use the React children.map, it can only do if you are direct children. So if my use case in which I will wrap my input with another div, it will fail. Yeah, that's why the correct way to use correct way to write compound component is use the context. Yeah, previously people use the React children dot map because React context used to be something buggy.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so thank you, Malcolm, for the really nice demo. So the next speaker is okay. So now we have a commercial break. Sorry.
Yeah. Commercial break.
This is Teja.
Hello.
Our lead developer. His favorite coding language is Ruby.
Sorry.
This is Mindvalley Quests, our revolutionary online learning platform. Quests is a part of our mission to evolve education for all of humanity and build the world's most advanced global school. This is one of our meeting rooms. We call it the Jedi Room.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Hey. Is it working? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. So, can you tell me what's the objective of this meeting?
This is Andrea, Mindvalley Scrum Master and Team Lead. Andrea works from home whenever she needs to focus. This is Kuala Lumpur, home of Mindvalley HQ. It's a melting pot of amazing people, culture, and food. This is Alsu,
Hi.
our head of technology products, and she can hold her breath for 2 minutes. This is our weekly team meeting. We call it the A Report. See that guy on stage? That's our CEO, Vishen. He's got a degree in computer engineering and is obsessed with reforming global education. This is our superhero collection. It reminds us that we build apps and tech to awaken people's inner superheroes. This is the Alkagizer. It's a green drink that we love because we're health nuts. But some of us prefer coffee, and that's cool too. This is our annual team retreat. Each year we fly everyone to a paradise resort for 4 days of bonding, parties, and personal growth. These are our developers solving a problem. You see, building technology to revolutionize education is no easy feat. But with enough smart brains, we believe we can solve any problem and elevate humanity together. This is the Weekly Tech Social, because even smart brains need to unwind. And this is an empty desk in our tech office. And this is our careers page where you could claim that desk for yourself. Join the Mindvalley Tech team. You'll like it here.
Yeah, so if anybody is interested in joining, you can come talk to me over there.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed. The short and entertaining video. Okay, so our next speaker is Amin. He's a full stack engineer from Vase.ai. And today he's gonna give a talk on implementing SSR and server-side rendering to an ongoing React project.
Hello, hello. Oh. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Connecting, huh? Yeah. So can I have a show of hands to those who are coding in React? Quite a few. Nice, nice. All right. So okay. How about those who uses JavaScript for their backend? Nice. We are rare. All right. So okay, cool. Nervous as fuck right now. All right. Present. All right. So my name is Amin Roslan. You can call me Amin. I am a full stack software engineer over at Vast.ai. And that's about it. That's my email, that's my portfolio. All right, so today we're gonna talk about how we're going to integrate, or should I say implement, server-side rendering, or in the sense SSR, to an ongoing production app. So the production app is basically a React app. Okay, so previously it was a single page application. That's what I meant. So to start things off, to those who are not familiar what server-side rendering is, so it's basically, you guys can see that? Yeah, you guys can see that. So basically, server-side rendering is a tool, it's a way of making your single-page application universal. That means some would say it's hybrid as well. So you get your pages rendered statically on the back end, and it will bring out to the front end, and the front end will take over and wash it down, or should I say hydrate? Ha, yes. Yeah, feeling myself right now, damn it. Okay, so from the slide, it's basically saying servers sending ready to be render HTML response to browser, and then the browser renders the page, now viewable, and the browser starts downloading the JavaScript in the background. And then after that, basically it'll execute the framework, in this case React, and then it's interactable. Then you can do a lot of stuff on that page, whatever page it is. All right. All right. See. Okay. All right. So next page. Why SSR? Some of you might be wondering. Well, basically, it helps with the quick load on the first initial. Quick load on the first initial content. I think that's the word for it. So, and then it also, users don't have to download a bunch of JavaScript before seeing content. So if you're using a single page application, you would know what that means. White screen, all right? So crawlers, like we all know, Googlebot, can detect the page, and then it's easier for, it optimizes your SEO stuff for your website or your web app in this case. All right. All right. So some of you might be wondering, wait a minute. Isn't that just like Laravel or Rails? It's like server rendered. It's a backend framework. It does stuff for you. Yes and no. Now, there are actually, when I was doing this slide, I actually thought to myself, yeah, this was quite a good debate. So I actually found actually 3 points that is relevant to this topic. First of all is that I had experience with Rails. So I know they render static pages from the backend, static being markups, HTML markups, and then whatever JavaScript you put in there, it will also be loaded. So one thing about backend frameworks is that they only render static pages to the front. And then, so if we have JS frameworks like React, or maybe Angular or Vue, okay, you can have a bit of a strength on the front side, meaning that you have more interactivity. You know how React is reactive. And then, so things like JS frameworks like React, it has the ability to manipulate the DOM. So you are able to do like asynchronous stuffs that actually render partial dynamic pages. For example, you don't have to load the whole browser to get something to show, some sort of like that, okay? And also, you don't have to send back information to be validated. You can be validated on the front end on the spot, and then you can just send it back, and it will just make things much more cleaner and shorter. All right? Good so far? Yeah? Okay? All right, so I'm gonna go into the good bits. So I was given the task to turn this one app into a server-side rendering app. So the tech stacks are basically, we're using React TypeScript, React Router, Mobex of our state management framework, Redis, MongoDB, Koa as our backend, Drone for CI/CD stuff, deployed, and also we monitor using Sentry. All right, so when I started off, the state of the project, it's not a new project. It's been around for more than 2 years. It's one of our company's panel web app where they check their accounts, so it's very high traffic. And the version was React 15.5, and it's been injected for custom Webpack stuff. And initially, we had to download 700 kilobytes of JavaScript before the first contentful pane, which is painful. And then we had basically divided the client side and the backend, the server, into 2 different repos. All right, so that was the state when I started off. And yeah. So I basically start off upgrading the React version, of course. So no longer React 15, I upgraded to the latest React. So by using React CRA, create React App 2.0, which includes a lot of good stuff. And also, because we are using Mobex, so we have decorators. So we had to override the decorators, override the CRA Webpack configs. So we also had that. We were using at that time customized CRA. I can show you guys how we actually override the default config for CRA. All right. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, here it is. Can you guys actually see? Wow, it's so small. Why is it not zooming in? Oh, okay. Ah, yeah. Where? Okay, let me close that. It's not closing. How do I close this again? I forgot already. I've been using this for a very long time. Still don't know how to close. It's control something, right? Control Shift 1. Command J. I knew that. All right. So you guys can see it, right? Is it? Yeah. Oh, nice. All right. So we basically start off. We have this one. We have 2 modules actually. We have React App Rewired. So React App Rewired, and also we have customized CRA. So the reason why we have 2 is because the React App Rewired alone doesn't support CRA 2.0. So we had to have another addition, which is customized CRA, which supports 2.0 and depends on React App Rewired. All right. So as you can see here, we have the decorators, add decorators legacy, meaning we add support. And then other stuff, add Babel plugin, disable ESLint. And also I created my own custom config here to ignore a quite famous bug minutes ago. So there's a lot of stuff you can do here. So yeah, this is how you override a CRA Webpack config, how it would look like. And then coming with that, your wait, let me see. Okay, so you also use React App Rewired instead of using React scripts. So you're actually using their own style of initiating the script. All right. So And then la-di-da, upgrade to the latest React 16.7 at that time. Now it's 16.8 or something. So the reason why upgrading is because we needed to use the hydration. Although my throat isn't feeling really hydrated right now. Never mind, it's okay. Next step I did was unify the front end and the back end repos. The two projects I mentioned, which is the client side and also the API server, which is our backend. All right. So we combine it into one project. So, and also we also added a bit of spice to the backend, transforming it to not only serve API, but also to render stuff. All right. So I'll show you how it actually is. Production ready. Oops, this is the search one. You know what they say about these trees, right? Do not open the node modules. You will have to scroll all the way up. All right. So as you can see, my style of approach was I have the whole CRA thing. The whole CRA directory and have the server inside of it. So I guess you could say my CRA app gave birth to a server. That's so weird. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. You know what they say about this one programmer who got kicked out of a job because he couldn't get a raise. All right, that was 5-second iklan. Sorry about that. Next. Oh yeah. Key challenges I faced. Okay, so wait, was it this one? Yep. All right. So key challenges that I faced was I needed to create a new Bootstrap file, meaning a file that starts the project. Because before this, I would start my backend project and then I would start my front-end project. But now I need something that unifies, starts everything. Okay. So I created a bootstrap.js file, which is somewhere here. Yep, here it is. So sorry, I wouldn't be doing live coding because everything here is just for me to show to you. No worry. So we have a lot of stuff in here. So ignore styles for loading. I also ignore images when we want to load to the front end because we had an issue where it doesn't load properly. So we had that. And then this is the whole logic that goes with it. And this is the main spice that we use to actually help with also rendering stuff. Because if you understand, on the back end, we are not all node versions actually go up to a point where they would know how ES6 Plus is. So we have a Babel register that actually compiles on the fly by having a require. And then we have a lot of stuff here. We use the preset.env because that shit is good. We target to Node 10, and then because we're using TSX, TypeScript React, we're using this one as well. So TSX, all extension. We also have React and give the extension with all this, and also all the plugins that were necessary for the project. This part took a while to find the perfect plugins. It was so hard, but managed to go through with it. And then we had polyfill for the generator thing, generator runtime, that's what they call it. And then lastly, we require the app itself, the app being the server. Okay, so basically starting off, we will do a node bootstrap JS. Yeah, yes sir. Yep, Babel 7. Sorry? Babel polyfill. Oh. Oh, that's actually a good idea. I'll refactor that later. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. That's a good one, man. All right. In fact, I do. Sorry about this. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, dude. Okay. So this is the Bootstrap. And then, so this will launch the whole thing up. So I will show you one by one of how everything would look like. Not everything, but just, you know, things that are necessary. Okay. So Bootstrap done. Like that. Okay. Next. Rendering logic to create at the backend to be sent to the client side. How now, brown cow? So after millions of guides Googling. Managed to create with this one lah. All right, so this is the renderer. I will show you, this is the file, but I will show you how I use it. So this is the renderer where the special thing that you guys need to focus on are the render to string, which is from the React DOM server, and the static router, and also Mobex. Yeah, Mobex is our state management there. So this is a custom, I would say, custom logic, custom plugins, I would say. I'll explain more later. Okay, so we start here. Export default is synchronous CTX. We're using Koa, by the way. So a lot of Koa stuff. CTX, context. And then I initiate all of the plugins here. So I will explain more on that later. And then I start getting the Mobex stuff here. I dehydrate it. And then, as usual, the good stuff are here. All right. So we render to string. Providers, static router, routes, provider. So this is basically how it would look like in the backend. Now this one looks familiar to some of you because it is actually, mana dia? Oh, it is. It is actually an equivalent to our index.tsx, to some of you JSX or TX. The same as this. So initially this was render. But in this case, we're using Hydrate. I'll explain more about that later. So we have a provider, router, routes, and all that. So routes being my main entry for my client-side app. Okay? Sorry. Client-side app. Okay. Going back to the renderer. The reason why I'm using static router is because that, well, to be honest, I just read the documentation. It told me to use static router. On the back end, so I have a location which points to from where we're coming from what we're requesting on, and then the context is an empty object. And then afterward, once we're done with that, I just put a try catch here because I wanted to squash some bugs at that time. And then we put some headers and cookies here. And then from here on, just ignore this part. This is how I replace the HTML. Now, I apologize because I haven't shown you how I got the HTML. So the HTML comes from, I resolve a path that goes to build and index HTML. So the reason why the funny thing about SSR is that you have to build your project first. It will go into the build directory, and then you have to read it to get all of the markups out. Hence, you put it in HTML, or what I call it, HTML. And then we copy the HTML here. I'm using a replace function. So right before the end of hit, I'm going to put in the window initial state, dehydrated store, which is the stuff that you get from the store initiation. And then I also put in the component, which was this thing that we made, render to string. And then we will be putting it, replacing it inside of the root, because that's where our codes will be at after rendering. All right. So this is basically how render is. Now I'm gonna show you how we're using it. So this is our main app. So app.js, as you can see. So we have the index controller here. We got all the controllers and all that stuff. Oh my God, please don't say shit again. All right. Let me show you how it's inside the controller. Damn it, I should have prepared everything. So sorry, guys. Should have prepared everything. All right. So this location, I placed it as a middleware, and it will process the context that you receive from the middleware, and then it will basically do their magic here. And I have it there. I have it actually in 2 places. So that is for the root page. And for other pages, since this is Koa, we actually did it. Oh, damn it. Okay. We actually did it. I put one down here. So use renderer, just a straight use renderer, server renderer. And also, we also need to serve the build, meaning we need to serve the static file as well to get the CSS and JS thing going on. All right. So that's how I used it. If you want detail about this, you can meet me later after the talk. No problem. I can talk to you guys more about this. All right. So I showed you guys how React DOM hydrate is. So basically, if you guys, okay, I want to know if you guys know how hydrate works. Show of hands who don't know hydrate. Nice, nice. Okay, that is what I'm here for. Okay, so hydrate. You guys imagine a tin of chocolate powder. All right. So you guys like chocolate. Hot chocolate, right? I assume you guys like it, so yeah, nice one. So imagine from the factory, it is processed as powder and not the actual hot chocolate itself. And then once it's sent to us, then we'll do all the bits and pieces, putting in the hot water and create our own hot chocolate. Now, if they created it there instantly, just create the hot chocolate and just sell it to us, by the time it reaches to us, confirm cold already. Become iced chocolate, okay? Not really iced chocolate lah, depending if you're living in Iceland, iced chocolate lah. So React DOM hydrate basically gets, you guys remember render to string from the backend, right? How it creates the component, the render to string. It will create, basically it will turn the component into its HTML markup, and then it pushes itself, transport itself to the front end, where the front end will detect if they are at the same spot, it will fill in the JavaScript. But if it's different, it will change with the difference. It will basically mend with the difference with it. So it hydrates in. Hydrates in. Yeah, I like that word, hydrate. Very hydrating. So, and then shared state management. This is where it gets interesting, guys. Shared state management, you guys might not be wondering this, but I had this issue where, okay, so if you can get the static page initially, for example, let's say you need authentication. So someone logged in, and maybe they have a session on the cookies. So you'd be like, wait, so if it's static, then it doesn't have any props, doesn't have any states. It will only wait until the client side renders it in. Then it will have all the cookies and all that stuff. So how? So that's where the state management I was, for this project is Mobax. That's why we had the, okay, so tired. So that's why we have the dehydrated store. All right, I can show you live on how it would look like, don't worry. So we initialize it, let me see. We initialize the store here. So we create a new store instance. And then we use the plugins. See? Declare initial user projects, detect country. So here are the custom plugins that I made, which are just functions. So I basically get the data first, with the backend, play around with it, get information, stick it into the store, and then transport it using window.initialState. Where's window.initialState? Oh, it's down here. Yep, this it is. So I use this as a transporter to the client side, to the front end. All right? Now on the front end, let's see. Okay, so on the front end, it will detect the window.initialState, and it will put it inside of a variable, and then that variable will be injected into the client side store. Hydrates everything all together. All right, I know it's quite confusing, but I'll show you how it actually works. Let me see. So right now, this is the site. Oops, sorry. Okay. So if we go to inspect page source, my God, so sorry, this is so small. Wait up. Let me try to do this. All right. So this, so as you can see, there's all the HTML stuff. These are all the HTML. So before, if we don't do HTML, if we take it as a single page application, just this much. Yep. Oh wow, it's lagging. So let's see where the div root is. So it's all the way. Let me see script. Oh my god, it's somewhere here. It's yeah. This is the div root. Okay, if you guys can see that. Oops. It's down there. Oh my god, it's so small. I'm so sorry, guys. It's so small. Come on, plus. All right. Right on. I know it looks bigger on my side as well. Okay, good. Thank you for the tip, dude. Thank you very much for the tip. Here it is. You guys can see or not? There it is. So it's an empty div. Nothing is loaded inside. Nothing is loaded inside on the initial static page. So we use SSR to load it in. Oh, yo, besarnya. Okay. So I think, yeah. So that's the window initial state. Oh shit, I forgot to show that, huh? Bloody hell. So sorry. Oh, it's here. All right. Where is it, man? Damn it, I'm lost in my own. Where is it? Where is it? Yeah. Hold up. Where's the advertisement? Oh, I knew that. Oh shit. Oh, window pun boleh lah, they say. Alright. Okay, there's a lot of windows. There it is. Alright. Okay. Alright. So look at the initial state. This was from the backend. Oh, sorry. A bit fast. I'm the Flash actually. So these are the initial state. It's actually an object. And we actually put in all of the stuff here. Logged in, sign out form, bank details, So those are actually coming from the renderer. From declare initial user object. Yep, there it is. Okay. So we transport it to the front end. All right. You know, in Malaysia they call it faham. Faham murid-murid sekalian? Yeah. Very cringy. Oh, cool. All right, no problem. We're about to end as well. No problem. All right. So other challenges that are not actually really important, but I take into consideration as well. So anything that depends on a window activity, which the browser has, window or document. So that one needs to be a condition. So meaning that I can also show to you guys, for example, I think it's in, let's see, index. Oh, no. It's in the front end. So for example, real quick here. So let's see, we find a window. So basically, the main point of this is to detect if we're in the server or the front end, the client side. So for example, like this, if type of window is undefined, if it's not undefined, then you can run this function. So this is telling that if we're no longer in the server being rendered, if we're already on the client side, then run this function. All right. So that was one of it. Getting needed props on static page to show before interactivity. That was the state management I showed you guys just now. And slow development. Okay, so this was very funny. So for example, how to run an SSR project is basically you have to build the files first and then put it in, basically turn on the server and it will feed off the build directory. So in CRA, it only comes with the npm build, meaning that it builds for production. It's already gzipped and everything. So what I did was I did a bit of dirty stuff. I basically over it created a custom script that actually builds stuff for development. So it's faster and it's better. And also it reloads on changes. So I can show you guys. That is actually the last part, don't worry. Where is it again? Oh, it's build dev. So yeah, I took out stuff from the React scripts and then I changed a few options, turn off the minimized version, and then put out the outputs, the public URL, changed it a few stuff. And this is just to make it nice, waking up Jaguar and all that stuff. And then this is when the project has completely built. And then it'll copy the app public to all that stuff. All right. Okay. So I can share with you guys that later on. Don't worry. My time is running out. So ending it up. So I did a three-step guide about this on my portfolio. So if you guys want to check it out, can check it out as well. So that's my email as well if you guys want to talk with me or anything. So yeah, that is the end of the talk. Thank you very much.
Does anyone has any question?
Yes.
Is there any challenge for using the plugin in server-side rendering? Because in React, I don't know for the book because the book is a new concept and all, but in React, not all of cycle will be run with the server-side thread. And the second question, why not Next.js?
Sorry?
Why you don't use Next.js? Why
sorry.
don't you use Next.js for
Oh,
this?
that's a good question actually. The reason why I was not using Next.js because the project has already been 2 years old and the project is really scaled up already. So having to basically use Next.js to convert everything into Next.js is very time consuming. So time wasn't actually on my side at that time. Yeah, but I totally know about Next.js. Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah, 3 weeks. Yeah.
And for the plugin?
For the plugins, what do you mean? The Babel plugins?
Challenge that you face for the plugin in server-side rendering other than window, I don't want window.
Oh, the rendering, is it?
Will not knowledge in the server-side. I know that you have to pick type of window, I know that, but other than window that you have. I think he's talking about lifecycle, like component will mount.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't partake in the server-side rendering part. So take it like this: even before the constructor even begin to construct, it's already been running. So that means the initial prop is really starting early before even the component wants to construct itself, and the life cycle continues on. Yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. You always usually have issues with the plugins that use window. Issue.
Yeah, only the ones with window or
Yes. Window and document. Because they both are browsers. Yes.
Okay, does anyone else have question?
Yes, sir.
This application, is it a single page application or is it a multi-page application?
It was initially a single page application, now it turned into a universal application.
So it's a bit of a hybrid between.
I would say hybrid. I would say, if everyone has their own way of saying it, but yeah.
So how do you serve your assets? Are you using code splitting to begin with?
Code splitting was in